Thank you, Andrew. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first panel session. And we have a distinguished group of experts, undoubtedly experts in the field of super yachts, brokers, insurance, aviation, the whole raft. In fact, what I'd like to do, kick off this section of the conference, is to introduce very briefly, because you can read their full bios as Andrew's already said, the various participants. We've got Jonathan Beckett of Burgess, Chief Executive, Martin Baum, who is the Managing Director of Pantanius, got Dawit Lemmer, who is the founder of Crimson Aviation, Joseph Adair, who's the founder and CEO of Wintech Marine Intelligence, Matti Zednikar, who is the CEO of CNET, and also has experience of owning yachts, and Kenny Jones of Global Operations. You've got myself. I'm the CEO of Bargate Murray, a law firm specializing in super yachts and aviation. I don't know whether I missed anybody out, but I think that's pretty much everyone on the panel. And we've got some interesting topics, I think, to come up today, because we are looking at the future. We're looking at the future of the super yacht business, and we're looking at exactly how it's affected our industry, how our industry has been affected. And I think that's a very important discussion to have. I'm going to kick off with the pandemic. And of course, we've all, as Andrew's mentioned, the pandemic has had a significant effect, but I don't actually think it's had much of a detrimental effect on our industry as much as it has on several other industries. And this is something I think we can pick up and run with our various panelists today. And the first, the panelists can raise any questions, and of course, so can the audience. I welcome questions from the audience as we go through this panel. But so the first question, I just general points, sort of background points, is on the pandemic side is, are we in fact the least affected industry? And why is that? Why has super yachts been so resilient? Why has the super yacht industry been so resilient in the face of such a tragic pandemic as appears to be the case? Now, I don't know whether anybody who wants to pick up that particular point, what's the reason? Because perhaps we can learn as professionals in this industry why it is that we have that unique, I would say, less of a detriment. Who would like to pick up that particular question or any other question they want to raise?
Yeah, if I may start, I bet it's very close to my heart that the resilience, in my opinion, is there because the core of yachting is privacy and a certain kind of security aspect. And yachting is unique in that respect, that it can provide this privacy and security, and the cruising is a little bit the core of it all. And it's, in my opinion, the whole industry went a little bit back to the roots, less lifestyle, a bit more just the love for the ocean and the sea and being on the water with close ones and enjoying the nature. And I think this is what really it boils down to. Of course, the charter market, Jonathan can discuss that later, has been hit much harder, but the use of your own boat with your own family was very much up this year. And I think that's one of the main reasons from my perspective.
Jonathan, the charter market, what's your view?
The charter market this year was very badly hit, actually. I mean, the sale and purchase market has been, it went through a quiet 4 or 5 months from March through the summer. And now we seem to be, seeing very good levels of activity in the sale and purchase market. But the charter market was very badly hit, the Mediterranean season. A lot of companies that I have spoken to were something like 50 to 60% down on number of bookings and income. I spoke to one prominent sort of independent retail charter broker in the States last week who has been very active over the last 30 years in the charter market. And that person told me actually they had done 0 charters this year. Oh. So, it's been very badly hit. We just hope that, going into next year, a lot of charters were moved, either cancelled or moved into 2021. and we hope the Mediterranean will be properly open in 2021 and we can get back to normal levels. And if we can't, then I think unfortunately we will see some casualties. But we're all very hopeful now with the vaccine that it will open up.
Yeah, is that everybody else's view as well? Because I personally, I think there's a difference between the charter market and the new builds and the second-hand market, put it that way. I've seen a lot of activity in sale and purchase and construction. That seems to be the way. But when it comes to charter, I guess it's a bit like a hotel business, I guess you could say, writ large. But I think one of the main features I would say, Jonathan and Van Ebry, I would suggest one of the main features is, and as Andrew's mentioned earlier on, I think in passing, it's because yachts are such excellent places in which you can isolate, on which you can get privacy, on which you can run your business and use it as a base for your business. Is that anybody else's view? Because I think that may actually mean some sort of a change in the use of yachts and also design of yachts going forward. They're not just pleasure islands, they are now becoming business tools. Would anybody agree with that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, go on.
Yeah, so what I was going to say was, just listening to the comments there, what we're experiencing, and obviously there's a lot of talk about the Mediterranean, which is the big chunk of the yachts, the mega yachts. But what we're experiencing now out in the Caribbean is a real demographic change. We're finding far more owners from the captains are securing their yachts for longer periods. And as everyone said on this call, for security and isolation reasons. We're also finding now that the vaccines are, hopefully becoming a reality. We're also seeing a lot of visits being postponed by several weeks due to the fact that a lot of these owners, charter guests, etc., are now contacting either the charter operators, the yacht, their captains, and saying, we'd rather wait till we have that opportunity to have our vaccine and then go and enjoy the yacht down in the Caribbean. We're also experiencing the fact that the markets are going in the right way, thank goodness. It's starting to free up a few purses, and we've experienced over the last, I would say, 2 or 3 weeks, a huge influx of bookings. And we were nervous a few weeks ago. We're feeling a lot more secure now in regards to the coming Caribbean season. But again, it's moving left and right constantly because of the uncertainty. And I think that's the nature of the beast.
Yeah, so there is a lot of uncertainty. The Caribbean market's interesting because we seem to see more US owners, funny enough, coming to the fore. A lot of interest from that part of the world. So is that a shift in demographics? I don't know. But there does seem to be more interest from the American market. And what's the insurer's point on all this, Martin? Is that something that you've noticed or not?
Well, we certainly noticed a change in the usage of the boats. So it's less charters, obviously, more private use. The owners are actually using their boats. At the beginning of the pandemic, we've seen more requests for laid up periods so that owners just couldn't travel to their boats. So Australian owners trying to get to the Mediterranean, or Americans get over here, or vice versa. Yeah, we had a few laid up policies, but that was actually reversed pretty quickly once the lockdown was eased a bit. And so I think that's all pretty normal now. The usage is there. The boats are used. So that's one point. I think the other thing we learned in this pandemic is that you have to always have a plan B. And so in order to provide your services as an insurance provider, you had to use much more localized surveyors, for example, who are in the area rather than sending people around. We also had to use new technologies, much more remote assessments and quick decision making without having to wait for all information at hand sometimes, just to get things going. And the other big point, I guess, is The crew part is a major topic, and I think this is something which will also change in the future. The crew also needs a plan B, because in this pandemic they were stuck on the yachts. They had to do very long periods in isolation. They couldn't be relieved from the team number 2. And I think this is something the industry really has to look at, and how can we have be prepared even better to deal with those first higher usage, and then second the worst case scenario like isolation and pandemic.
Yeah, I mean, yes, interesting. Are we going to see a reduction in insurance costs or is it going to increase? What's the effect actually in financial terms on the insurance industry?
I think there's no effect on the premium, because the boats will be still used, and so I think that's not going to change. I think there's going to be more disruption on an insurance contractual basis from the Brexit than from the pandemic. So I think the pandemic in itself is over from a point of laid up policies, because no one wants to keep his boat now only in the marina, because there's not going to be another complete lockdown. So I think that's past.
I'd love to know if anybody here is based on employing crew or involved in crew management, because what you're saying actually, Martin, is very pertinent, because we've certainly seen a lot of law firm, we see a lot of members of crew in terms of managing the problems, because they are sometimes, and of course the risks of isolation and the ability to travel around the world, recruiting crew from different parts of the world. Is that a major problem for any crew managers, managers generally?
Yeah, maybe I want to answer on that. Yeah. What we saw, I'm now talking from an owner's perspective, from a business perspective. Let us see from an owner's perspective. What you saw is, we already mentioned the advantage of being in an isolated place, creating your own bubble. Yeah, like we call it over here, a bubble of safety. So that brings owners, or that stretches owners more to be on board, because you have there your safety environment. But it also creates a lot of challenges towards the crew, because the crew all of a sudden, instead of having an owner on board who goes on and off, yeah, who spends also time on land, spends time on restaurants on land, now is on a full-time base on a boat. So that means from an entertainment perspective, the crew gets a different challenge, because when you're spending 1 week or 2 weeks on board of the boat, where you're hopping on and off and have some external activities, what is not on the boat, the crew can spend their time on extra maintenance when the owner is off board. Now, all of a sudden, the owner is from the morning to the evening, the owner is on board. Owners get a little bit bored. So you have to become very creative in having other ways to entertain your owner on board, but also maintenance-wise. So you have to adapt your maintenance scheme on board. You cannot simply start cleaning because they are not off board. You are still moving around on the boat. So that's also something that changes.
Well, apart from that, because we might be covering also the business opportunities that come out of this. Let's not forget that. So what are the opportunities for guys like you and me and all of us actually, in terms of looking at the future, saying, well, we can make money from this. We can offer new services. What are the new services, the new money-making opportunities for people in the industry, do you think?
Can I jump in on that?
No.
You mentioned the crew, and ultimately the majority of us here, our customer fundamentally is the captain and the crew. Yeah. If they're not looked after, all goes wrong. So what we've seen as an opportunity to break the habit. We've got vast amount of boats coming to us now that have never been to our locations. As was stated, a lot of American movement. So we're taking advantage of that. We put outside gymnasiums, we put isolation areas so a crew can book a slot by the swimming pool to get off the yacht and get away from the captain, get away from the owners. Because I think that's going to be one of the casualties of our industry, is the fun element for the crew. There's a certain percentage of that has gone away. They're going to have to work a damn sight harder and in quite arduous conditions where they've got to isolate. We've introduced onboard testing that can be organised through the Marine Office, for example, to make it easier. We've organised tagging, so therefore we can see who's tested, who isn't tested positive or negative, to enable them to go to certain parts of our facilities and still have that youthful enjoyment that that a lot of the crew are actually in this industry for. So that's something we focused on, and as you said, something that we can capitalise on and take advantage of.
Well, something that that occurs to me, actually, it's something that Joseph sent me a message about, which is looking into 2021 and where we are, where the major areas that shipyards and owners should be focusing on. That was a good question that Joseph raised. And it's always very difficult to predict what's going to happen, what we should be looking at, but we have to make some kind of a stab at that. And if you're a shipyard, or if you're an owner, you're thinking, well, we've got to focus on these areas. We're going to do these things to make it. It's very difficult to know where we'll be in 6 months' time. Actually, we have a good idea. Actually, seeing as this was a question that was suggested to me by Joseph. Joseph, would you want to take that forward?
Yeah, I think that obviously everybody is highly concerned about the whole coronavirus and the side effects. But I think we should not, and we cannot afford ourselves stop thinking about a way forward. And we are in a world that's transforming itself very rapidly into complete digitization of anything and everything that we're doing. You know, we're all sitting here around a Zoom platform instead of being together in Malta. And it's working. And we have at the moment more than 100 participants, and we can benefit from it. I think that in the superyachting industry, the biggest issue is the lack of data science. We don't have data science in the superyachting industry at all. It's one of the only industries in the world that left behind the Industry 4.0 revolution on both aspects of data visualization and machine learning. Now, from our perspective, our focus is exclusively around the machine learning, both internal and external, where we will be able to take the super yachts into the next generation with technology that will offer predictive maintenance, will be able to offer optimization of the operation of the super yacht, will be able to offer owners dramatic reduction of the cost of ownership, will be able to offer yacht management companies the true knowledge of what is the total cost of ownership. But at the same time, the shipyards needs to start picking up some slack and move over into the 3D modeling, into digital twins, into computerized simulations at a level that will transform the industry. Because what it will do, it will create more reliable, more efficient, more environmentally friendly products. At the same time, the cost of ownership will be dramatically reduced. So I think that at the moment, the shipyards, and I've visited 12 of them in Italy during September and October, they are all firing on all cylinders. The shipyards are full of new business. And although the pandemic hit the charter market, although maybe some of the brokerage market, but the new build looks very vibrant. And I think that they must start looking into the technology moving forward. At the moment, it's extremely difficult to make them paying, I would say, any attention or put any serious priority to the digital transformation, and we're again being left behind.
I couldn't agree more.
Predictive maintenance sounds very good. Can you tell me a bit more? Maybe, by the way, I want to make sure we get a full view from the different sides of the industry. I don't know whether, Dawit, you've had a chance to apply any of these factors that we're discussing to the aviation industry, because that's something you're very much key.
Yeah, actually, thank you, Quentin. It's very interesting from the business aviation perspective. If you to link in the relationship between business aviation and super yachts, of course. What's very interesting traditionally, the Côte d'Azur, for example, the Nice and Cannes region have always been busy hubs for business aviation. Not because there's business, but because the yachts are there. And you'll see someone get off their jet and then get on a helicopter and then straight to their yachts. So for the exact same reasons that we were just discussing earlier, because of COVID, and let's just say the lack of course, travel through because of commercial airlines, you were definitely seeing an uptick in business aviation from traditionally non-business aviation users per se, because of the quarantine or the safety perspective, being able to self-quarantine in a private jet and have control of your safety and your health control per se. So I'm a positive person in general, so I'd like to think that COVID created more awareness about the advantages of business aviation in terms of from a safety perspective, being able to be isolated, and also psychologically knowing that you're getting to an aircraft and maybe you and your family alone. That's also it's been definitely a perspective. And again, I think just to wrap that up, I think COVID has given overall awareness to the industry, business aviation wise.
Yeah. In fact, there's some ways similarities between the aviation industry and the yachting industry. They both have that same advantage of being basically you get away from other people, which is something which is quite important right now, and can travel safely to your destination either for leisure or for business. I also know we have clients who use their yachts and jets as well, mainly jets particularly for business, but they also use their yachts increasingly for business because for the reasons I've mentioned earlier. So, but that means there is some degree of similarity.
But there is also that the lines between business and leisure become very thin, because even as a businessman, you cannot go to the office. In a lot of cases, you cannot see clients. So you're stuck to a remote office. So then what's the difference to enjoy your yacht, to be on board? As long as you have internet and you have printing and scanning facilities, you can do everything on board, which you can do at home. And you can combine your pleasure time together with your working time. So I think also there, the line is becoming very, very thin. Normally as a businessman, you travel a lot. You go from one meeting to another meeting, you see people. But now even in business, you are stuck. You cannot see all your clients because you're simply not allowed to. So that gives you an opportunity to spend more time on board and use it as a floating office.
You're completely correct. There is certainly that opportunity. I mean, in some ways, this is exactly what we're all doing in our personal lives and our business lives, even if we don't own a yacht. If you do own a yacht, you can do that more, but it's also happening just in terms of the way I run my business. We have a lot of work going on. We have a big closing coming up imminently, and that's something which we're going to be doing virtually rather than usual. You end up lots of meeting and you're handing over documents everywhere. Now that's being done electronically or virtually, and we all have to adapt. One question to be put to me in a slightly different topic in the same general area, I suppose. It's all about pressure, and this comes from one particular attendee, somebody I know quite well. You may know him as well, Richard Philippes. What he's suggesting is that COVID's put pressure, especially in the Med, on marina berths and the allocation of rather scant availability to super yachts. So in other words, there's a berth problem, which that's been brewing anyway because of the large number of super yachts, which they don't get scrapped, they just get so that's something he's concerned about. Do you agree with that? Is that something the panel agrees with, that there's more pressure being generated on berths because of COVID?
I hope so. I hope there's continued to be a lack of slips in the Mediterranean. And it is true. We've just recently built a facility in Sète by Montpellier. Huge demand for that. We've just taken on Malaga and we're developing that. And we wouldn't be doing that if there wasn't the demand for very large slips in the Med, and continue to be.
Yeah, but the question is it COVID related?
Yeah.
Is it COVID related? No, I don't think so. I think it's industry related.
It's industry related.
Yes. You're building the boats quicker than the marinas can can be made available to accommodate them.
Our designers, does anybody know, sorry, John, does anybody know whether the design of yachts, if you speak to a top designer, top design house, are they being asked to alter the designs of yachts to make them more suitable post-COVID because there have been changes in the way people use their assets? Is that you're seeing that happening? Jonathan, maybe you have enough point on that because you're about to jump in.
I think we haven't really seen that. I don't think but I think there has been a general trend over the last, let's say 5 to 10 years, where people, in my early career, people would go cruising for 2 weeks and then they'd go home back to their business and their families. And now, we're seeing owners who will move on board their boat for as much as 6 months of the year. And so they're living on board, they're working on board, and they need all the facilities there to cater for a long-term stay, which, maybe medical facilities, maybe, office and video conferencing facilities on board, accommodation for a secretary or for staff on board. And so certainly over a period of time, we are seeing a very different type of design coming out than we were, 10 to 20 years ago. And that is because people are moving on board long term.
Does that affect the size of yachts as well? Because I'm just speculating whether or not it had an effect. We've seen an increase in the size of yachts, an increase in the number of explorer yachts people building, because that's another way people can use assets more creatively, not just bobbing around in the med. So there are various things that are happening naturally over time with yachts, and is this the pandemic and the changes and the use of yachts, is that pushing it in another direction? Another change is now coming as a result of that. Is that a false perspective, or is that correct?
I mean, certainly a number of the sort of brokerage deals that we're doing at the moment, and we're doing, a good number of brokerage deals. The brokerage market is very, very active right now. And we're even selling sort of second yachts to certain clients who want to position one, let's say, in the Mediterranean and one in the Pacific or one in the Caribbean. And they are positioning the yachts there so that they and their families can escape COVID in their home country and go and isolate on the boat. So definitely we're seeing boats going to different places, I think, at the moment, where clients and owners feel safe on board.
Yeah.
Can I just add to that? I think we talked about business opportunities, and I do believe that, of course, the existing users and boat owners, they are changing slightly their habits, but I think there is an opportunity and a strong business case to actually start a concept which is tailored exactly to a new breed of owners that are more thinking of a boat as a second office or a second home, in a way where they can really from day one plan maybe a 6 months on, 6 months off scenario. And I don't see anyone in the market who really has yet marketed this as such a proposal. And I do believe there is a bit of an opportunity there. And of course, this has quite a long line of consequences in terms of the crew, in terms of the design of the boat, in terms of the sustainability systems on board, and so on and so forth. So I think this is a very, very interesting topic. And I do believe that there will be some proposals at one point from designers and shipyards on the market that will cater for that kind of usage more.
I think what I would say is I think there's a big opportunity for a designer to get themselves out there more. I mean, obviously we've got some very good designers who actually make a statement, and yards to develop a product more closely aligned with the current use profile and the current profile also of owners, because there's more owners now are younger, they're coming from a different perspective. They're not just sitting on, they're not just sort of the proverbial James Bond villain stroking a cat on some luxury yacht. They want to use it, want to make use of it, they want to work their asset.
Yeah.
We talked about crew as well. We've mentioned crew. Of course, we have crew, permanent crew, rotational crew, and the fact they're getting pretty tired because they've been worked so hard. All these factors are suggesting that there is a need to look at the industry as holistically, and look at different ways of making sure we use the assets properly.
Yeah.
That's a big
If I
change.
may add,
Yep.
Quentin,
Yes.
I think that
Yes, of course you can do.
one of the key issues in order to be able to utilize the super yacht is your business base for 6 months out of the year.
Yes.
This is going completely to change the way that people are operating the super yacht and the way that you run, sorry, the maintenance on board, the way that you take care of the asset itself. It's no longer an asset that is being utilized for anything between 4 to 8 weeks. It's an asset that is going to be utilized continuously. And to be able to continuously use an asset, very much the same as it's done in the aviation industry. You asked the question before, I didn't have a chance to answer it. What is predictive maintenance? Predictive maintenance is that you know what is going to break and when it will break. You are getting from the platform and RUL remaining usable life on each and every component on the super yacht. So it's not for the chief engineer or the captain to do a guesswork and actually to tell the owner that something right now is broken and he cannot utilize the super yacht as he wished to. You need to be able to know in advance when a fault is going to happen. Very much the same as we don't have airplanes falling off the sky. We're assuming that it's a boat and it will continue to float on the water, so maybe we don't care. But I think we have to change the whole attitude, and we have to move from the condition-based maintenance, which is the way anyone and everyone is working today, to move to the predictive, so we can move in 5 years from now to the prescriptive. So we will be able to find the root cause and to perfect the designs and to make these platforms something dramatically more reliable and sustainable. And
That
I
would
think
reduce
this is
premium as well.
sorry.
That would reduce the premium as well on the insurance.
Absolutely.
It sounds like a good idea.
Agree.
That's a
And
win-win
reduce-
situation you're describing.
Sorry.
I think, Joseph, you're describing a win-win situation if you've got insurance.
Absolutely. It's not, and the cost of, by the way, if the designers and the shipyards will start to move over to full data visualization and full digital twins, it will reduce the cost per gross ton production of ultra luxury yacht dramatically. There is no reason to pay 70, 80,000 euros per gross ton, because if you design it properly, you don't have to account for 20, 30,000 euros per gross ton for changes. You just do it right the first time.
Well, very good point. And what about digital printing? Can you digitally print a yacht, or is that just a silly thing to say?
Okay, let's take it easy. But you know, today digital printing, you will be. I mean, the day will come. If you produce your yacht as a digital twin, you can print on the yacht almost every mechanical part that you need. If you have the printing chamber. But this is not, I don't think that it will happen in our industry. It's moving into the commercial fleets. I just want to bring the audience, there has been a lot of publicity about the Mayflower 400. I don't know if you've seen it, and I don't know if people noticed it. I think it's a very important event because it's actually the first platform, the first truly autonomous yacht that is going to sail from the UK across the Atlantic, 100% autonomous. Nobody is saying that we will move in the yachting industry into full autonomy. We're not there. We're not there in the cars, let alone we're not there in the super yachting industry, and we still need the crew. But at the same time, I think it's very important to follow the trend, because what we will be able to do is to give the captains a very high level of enhancement, digital enhancement to their decision-making and their ability to avoid collisions with objects. I'm not talking about collisions with other ships, but collisions with objects, to avoid issues of over-fuel consumptions, improve stability of the voyage. There are many aspects to the externality that we're not using today. And it's very much straightforward. This is a platform that we're going to start releasing this year in 21, dealing only with the externality. So we need to start to implement technology for the safety, for the efficiency, and for the comfort of the owner as well, not only for the perfection of the maintenance. So there are two aspects to the same coin.
Matti, can I just ask you a question in relation to what Joseph and others have said? I mean, given you own as well as yachts, is this reflecting the views of the current generation of owners, do you think?
Let me see what we see, but okay, I have two perspectives, from an owner side and from a market side as a professional now, being 4 years, so I think very young in the market. So we sold in the past 4 years, we launched 4 boats in the range between 93 and 160 foot in shared ownership. So what we see is that more and more people and the majority of our owners, maybe good as a background, majority of our owners were very experienced charter guests. People, all of them, so we also did the financial analysis, people, all of them were able to buy a full yacht. So it's not from a financial perspective that they went to co-ownership, but they simply, they made the jump because they watched very often during a holiday, they said, okay, I'm now charting for multiple years, they want to own the boat, but they simply didn't want to spend that amount of money for 3, 4, 5 weeks a year. So that was a little bit, that's the type of clients that we have. So what we see very clearly is that we get more and more inquiries. Even during the COVID period, we had a full stop until, let me say, the mid of June. There was no action in the market. There were no requests. And from the mid of June, we almost doubled our inquiries. So a lot of people are more and more focusing on that isolation point of having a yacht. So there you see the market is changing. The second thing what we saw is that on the 4th boat that we have now closed, what is a 35 meter, we saw that we got more and more inquiries from crew. Not only due to the fact that COVID that has caused a lot of dismissals of crews, but also that people very specifically knocked on our door when we asked them why CNET, because all our boats have full rotational crew. So that means people work 2 months on, 2 months off, and people more and more are looking, also crew is looking to a better way of having quality of life, a better balance between, I love to be on the boats, but I also have a private life. So I think that also the future, where owners are much more intensively using boats, will force the industry in rotational crew. And not only on the big yachts, and not only on the captain and the first mates or the chief engineers, but for the full crew, that people simply swap. We swap each 2 months the full crew on all boats. And I must say people are very, very happy. And the news spreads around, and we get a lot of inquiries from who said, when you have a next boat, call me, because I'm willing to go to that rotational scheme.
Excellent, a very good point, actually. Jonathan, do you have that? Because you obviously, Burgess obviously employ the crew division, and is that what you're seeing, a change in the way the crew approach this?
Yes, we are, and you know, obviously, a lot of crew want rotation these days, and there is still a big educational process with both owners and crew in terms of what can be done and what is achievable and what's acceptable. You know, 2 on 2 off is a very good system, but you know, obviously looking at, you know, where you employ the crew from and whether they get their airfares paid home after every 2 months, or and you know, the salaries that they earn, are they earning 100% salary for 6 months of work? And so there is no set formula as yet, and I think it would be very helpful to, you know, to brainstorm that and get an acceptable formula across the board for rotational crew.
Yeah.
One of the advantages. Oh, sorry. Go on.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I'm here listening to some of the topics here, and it's quite interesting to see that there's a lot of similarities and a lot of synergies between yachts and actually business jets. When you're talking about business opportunities, you know, the berths, you know, with COVID, what has happened with the airliners being grounded is there's no more parking space on a lot of airports. But additionally, private jets want to be parked in hangars. because the intrinsic value of an aircraft sitting on the ramp for a long period of time versus sitting in a hangar is completely different. When you have, of course, yacht owners who are spending 6 months on board their super yacht, linking that time, that 6 months with the aircraft movement as well, is quite a business opportunity, and also linking the preventative maintenance. And then the last thing I just heard was the crew rotation. That's another issue. So I just wanted to put in my 2 cents to that. I think owners of business yachts tend to be, I confidently say, owners of private jets or helicopters as well. So from a yachting perspective, the yachting industry would have discussions with the business aviation industry in terms of the ownership, speaking with the owner and trying to maybe coordinate efforts of the usage of the assets. If the owner is on the yacht, then maybe it's time to put the aircraft in the hangar for maintenance, and vice versa, et cetera, things like that. So I think there's definitely a lot of synergies there. And I'd encourage my colleagues in the super yacht industry to reach out to the business aviation partner or vendor of your clients, so you can coordinate the efforts there.
Yeah, we spoke about predictive maintenance, about data science, but keep in mind that at this moment, and I really believe that that's the way forward, but it will still take us years to fully implement it and to get the maximum out of it. But at this moment, how I look to it, the data science is now the crew. So that means the knowledge of a captain, the knowledge of a chief engineer, the engineers on board, that's the data science what we have today. And I make the connection with rotational, what we see in the past 4 years, that people are going off the boat. So crew that we hire, and then the percentage of people who swap, who go from out of the company to another boat, is very, very low. So when you go on rotational, you increase the quality of life, but you also loyalize people. People stay connected with a yacht, and you keep your data, and you keep your knowledge about the boat on board of your yacht. And I think that's also a huge advantage as an owner.
Yeah. We're coming towards the end of this session. What I'd like to do, actually, because we have to keep our eye on the time, so every panelist, and we've got to think about, let's be positive. Think about the one positive thing that's come out of COVID on the whole situation. And what's the one message you'd like to give to the industry going forward? The one takeaway, positive takeaway you'd like to say. Can you start? Jonathan, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think the positive for us has been to see the increased level in brokerage activity and new construction activity. There's a lot of people, a lot of clients who've been sitting on the fence for a long period of time, thinking about buying a yacht, maybe upgrading their yacht. And I think COVID has really kickstarted them into action, and made them realize that they're not immortal, they're mortal. Life has will have an end, and it's time to sort of start living life and enjoying it. And it's a great safe place to take your family to spend some time.
Joseph, can I move to you, please? That's a very good point there, Jonathan.
Yeah. I think we utilized this 1 year of the COVID to finish developing our platforms, and I do believe that we're now entering the phase that shipyards will start to implement the predictive maintenance. I can tell you that we will announce in January the first 2 installations with a leading shipyard in Italy that will have already embedded predictive maintenance into all their technical deck. And as my colleagues mentioned before, you can rely completely on the knowledge of an engineer or a captain. I think that our super yachts are becoming more sophisticated and more advanced, and we need to let the machines tell us what we need to do, and not someone maybe has sufficient knowledge what should be done.
The rise of the machines. I see. Well, that sounds terrifying. Martin, how about you? What's your positive takeaway?
I think people love yachting, love boats. I'm very, very pleased about that. It's really a booming sector in a world where everything else goes pear-shaped a little bit. So we can count all ourselves very lucky. And I think the other major point is that we started to cooperate on a different level with the industry the stakeholders and partners, much more remote meetings, much more ways of looking at the problem from a new perspective and trying to find solutions for the problems that we have in a new way. And I think that's very positive. There are really ways to make things more efficient. I don't think every time you have to fly to a client and shake his hands, you can do it with the tools we have nowadays. And if at the end of the day, we all look at it a bit more analytically and are able to share our information, I think that will make the whole industry more efficient and also better for experience for the clients. So I hope we can take some of these positive new ways of tackling the old problems into the future.
Absolutely. I certainly hope we can as well. Matty, how about your positive takeaway?
Yeah, my positive takeaway is that from a yacht owner's perspective, that the awareness about the potential of the yacht will dramatically increase. That means it will result in more use of a yacht. So the 3, 4, maybe 5 weeks a year, I'm pretty sure it will become more. People will use their yachts much more intensive. Together with that, because as a result of that, also the importance of crew will become more and more clear. And this will definitely drive us in the direction of a higher quality standard in their working schemes and the way that we approach them, the way that we treat them, that we appreciate them. And on the end, also maintenance, because when you want to spend your boat more intensively, I think it's much easier to convince an owner that he has to spend more money on a boat because he wants to have a boat what is in a top shape. So I think that circle of higher use, more importance about crew, a better maintenance on the boat, I think we will have a benefit of it, all of us within the industry, and we have to use it in the right way. So for me, Short mentioned COVID is a blessing, when I can say from a business perspective. And I want to approach it positively.
Well, I think that's exactly what I'd like to have the takeaway message. Let's approach it positively. David, how about you? Would you like to kick off with something from your side?
Yeah, definitely. I think COVID, like Matthew said, I'm very positive. I think what COVID has done is it's changed the perception of business aviation. I'm pretty sure the same for super yachts in the sense of what the asset can be used for from a safety perspective, a health perspective, but also just a functional and time perspective. And I think also what COVID has done is introduced a new kind of clientele per se. Those who probably never experienced using a business aviation aircraft were forced to use it because they needed to travel. I'm sure those who've never probably have only used a super yacht for holidays or now find themselves. Somebody mentioned like maybe a secretary who's on board for a long time with the owner. So I think it's just it's opened up a new client base and perhaps changed their perception of from a luxury toy to a tool of convenience, safety, and business. So like Matthew, I'm very positive about what COVID has done.
Well, this is really good. I do hope, Kenny, you're not going to drag us all down into the murk. Is it positive for you as well?
Sorry, was that me?
Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, no, absolute positive. If anything, it's endorsed our sort of mantra that marinas aren't just places to park boats. It's all about looking after the crew and captain and making sure the amenities are there, and it's definitely fun. And it's even more important now. We mention the crew a lot. It's even more important to just keep driving that part of our business. And what we found in a very positive way is it's given us the opportunity to break a habit where yachts go to this place every year, do the same thing every year. We're finding yachts are now becoming more adventurous, and it's given us a great opportunity to bring in new customers. So yeah, sadly, yes, it has been a positive experience because it's generated change.
Well, I think so. A lot of talented people have made a good fist of it, and that's what's happened. And we've proven that we're a very adaptable industry, all of us in the industry. And I think we're meant to. Well, Lorna's around, but I think we've pretty much got the end of our session. certainly
Actually, Quentin, we have got a little bit more time if we need it, and I've just to jump in here, but we do have a question in the chat session there from I don't know if you can see it, Quentin, from Anthony Skipari regarding insurance that might be interesting.
Yeah, due to COVID-19, all yachting business has been affected except the marinas, and most of the prices are reduced. So are there any efforts towards the marinas management to reduce their charges during this period? So is there a cost-cutting exercise going on with marinas? Are they slashing their costs? Any sign on that? Kenny, your
microphone is off, Kenny.
Sorry about that. No, it's been said over and over again, boats have to go somewhere, there's a demand, and ultimately, no, we're not cutting prices, and I haven't seen any reduction in prices. What is tending to happen is we have a category system in our particular business where the longer you stay, the cheaper you pay. We're finding, as it's been said, a lot more. Boats are gravitating to us and booking for longer periods. So by default, they're getting a cheaper rate per linear foot. And that's something we're seeing. We're seeing a lot longer commitment in time. So by default, yeah, the prices are coming down. But the demand's going up also. So
again, that's all. I could say that's all part of the positive message. You could say, because the costs are coming down for a negative reason. It's for a positive reason, different use.
Yeah, there's a lot more commitment. I mean, I can tell you, yachts strangely usually spend a couple of weeks with us, and they're booking for several months because the owner's committed to hang around the USVI, for example.
Yeah. Well, that's certainly, I hadn't realised that, but that's certainly an interesting perspective on the use of marinas. There's always been a shortage anyway, but it's becoming more acute as time's gone on.
There's actually a question, Quentin, about insurance as well that might be appropriate for Martin. Yeah. Someone's asking, is there any new insurance offered to protect crew client from COVID when they're getting on board?
Wow. You mean in terms of health insurance? Of course, it's covered if you fall sick and you have the COVID virus, then the medical costs are covered. But to have some kind of interruption policy where you then get your salary extended due to COVID, I think that if you have bought that insurance, and you can buy that insurance, it's paying your wages on after sickness. That's that you can buy that, but you can always buy that.
Well, is that expensive insurance to buy?
It is, yes, it is. But it's traditionally, it's always expenses. If you fall sick and your wages are continued to be paid, it's cost a lot of money. So you can buy that insurance. And I know a lot of owners who do buy that, but some of them don't really want to pay it for their employees. I think it's not very cheap. I mean, it costs money.
Well, I would have thought it'd been very expensive given the current pandemic, and we don't know what's happening. But anyway,
no, but it's not higher or lower. It's just the risk is pretty much the same, but they put a price on it, obviously, but not that drastic, because you can fall sick from many other sicknesses as well. So
yeah. Well, I'm gonna still file that one in the positive column because it's good for your business. So therefore, it should count. No, it should count. I think also owners, if they're buying this stuff for their crew, that specifically then that's good news. That's another benefit. Any closing comments from anybody else? Any last questions? I've got a question here. I've just noted it's been raised in the chat. If the panel was placing a bet on the first fully functioning boat show of 2021, what would it be? Which I think is a bit of a cheeky one, but I think it's quite a good question actually, because I quite like to know which is going to be the first boat show. Will we be up and running? I hope so, but we'll have to see.
Düsseldorf, I think.
Well, why not? Yeah, absolutely. I think we'll all vote for that. My point of view is that last 2020 has been a complete washout, of course, like for most people. But I certainly look forward to meeting you guys all in person. Actually, to be honest, it'd be very nice to sort of.
Absolutely.
But also there, I think never let a good crisis go to waste. What Churchill mentioned, I think also there we have to focus on creating different ways to the market besides boat shows. Also, that's a good thing because it pushes us to become creative and to present our boats in a different way than only through a boat show. I think also there, it's pushing us in the right, in another direction. It forces us to become creative, and I think that's a good thing.
Well, in recent, I would say that in recent examples are when US clients or clients from other parts of the world can't go and view a yacht in person. They'll rely upon somebody to go and look at it for them, a surveyor. They won't actually have a chance to see it. There's technology to show a virtual reality view of the interior of a yacht or an actual view of the interior, or an aircraft, I imagine, with the same. So people are being very creative. They are.
Yeah. Yeah, but can you imagine that 1 year ago, when a lot of us would ask the question, can you imagine that you close a multi-million deal in whatever business by a team meeting or by a Zoom meeting? You would definitely say, no, we need to be in one room, we need to close, we need to touch and feel people. No, all of a sudden, during the COVID, we've closed multi-million deals simply based on a closing meeting in Zoom. Yeah? So also there. So I think also in yachting, this will change a lot.
Oh yes, I think that's definitely right. So, Lorna, are we okay for time, or are we?
Yeah, we still have a little bit more time. There's just a couple of sort of comments and other questions coming into the chat facility, actually. Yeah. So someone here, Jonathan Watson, has said vaccine approved for use in the UK today, as Andrew mentioned. Are things going to start to go back to the way they were? What has changed for good? Well, obviously we've gone through some of the opportunities. Yeah, I mean, that's a very broad question, isn't it? Are things going to go back to the way they were?
I say hopefully not. You know, I think I really think there's opportunity to get better in the industry and use more data, as we said, for the maintenance, but also envision that the usage of the boat is changing and that there is room for more sustainable long-term use. And so there's a market for all of these segments, and it's not just a pleasure toy sitting there for a little bit of lifestyle and then leaving it again. I think that's going to change.
It's the Pfizer vaccine that's been approved, isn't it? I think that's the one that's been approved.
Yes.
Oh, Andrew, you just popped up again.
Okay.
Andrew's back in.
I'm here. Yeah. So shall we wrap it up there? What do you think, Quentin?
I'd like to thank all the panelists who've done a terrific job, actually, of raising a number of interesting points that I hadn't actually thought of, some of them. So yeah, on that basis,